Hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel, where stories and other random things take center stage. Welcome to today's video and my review of the Camelot Betrayal by Kiersten White. This is the second book in the Camelot Rising trilogy. I will link the previous video below if you have not watched it, but definitely check it out before. It is spoiler free. I spoiled like a few things, but I don't feel like they're considered, I don't consider them spoilers too much because I didn't tell you how things happen. So, so yeah, anyway, let's begin. I have the synopsis up right now. The second book in a new fantasy trilogy from New York Times best-selling author Kiersten White, exploring the nature of self, the inevitable cost of progress, and, of course, magic and romance and betrayal. So epic, Queen Guinevere remains the most famous queen who never lived. Everything is as it should be in Camelot. King Arthur is expanding his kingdom's influence with Queen Guinevere at his side, yet every night dreams of darkness and unknown power plague her. Guinevere might have accepted her role, but she still cannot find a place for herself in all of it. The closer she gets to Bramja, pining for her lost love Isolde, Lancelot fighting to prove her worth as Queen's Knight, and Arthur everything to everyone and things never quite enough, and thus never quite enough for Guinevere, the more she realizes how empty she is. She has no sense of who she truly was before. She was what? Hold on. Of who she truly was before she was Guinevere. The more she tries to claim herself as queen, the more she wonders if Mordred was right. She doesn't belong. She never will. When a rescue goes awry, when a rescue goes awry and results in the death of something precious, a devastated Guinevere returns to Camelot to find the greatest threat yet has arrived, not in the form of the Dark Queen or an invading army, but in the form of the real Guinevere's younger sister. Is her deception at an end? And who is she really deceiving, Camelot or herself? This really is a book that explores self, but it mainly happens a little bit more in the next book, which I'll talk about in the next review. But I feel like this is a good hint to it because it seems like Kiersten White writes in trilogies. She did mention it in a live stream that she mainly writes like in trilogies, because it's like the beginning, the middle, like the setup, the middle, and then the end, right? So she does write in these trilogies. I do remember her mentioning this like maybe last year, closer to the release of the Camelot Betrayal. I follow her on Instagram, so sometimes I check in. I also follow her on Twitter, so sometimes I check in. I don't go to my social media as much as I should, and I really should because I want to be more active and posting links and stuff. Anyway, so this really is one of those books, and what I like about this one specifically is that it deals a lot with a threat that is non-existent. Because most of the book, also I enjoyed the side quest that ended up being very important, which is where the rescue mission comes into play. But it delves very deep into who Guinevere was and who she is and who she's supposed to be when it comes to what happens now. And that is something I enjoy because I think it's important that we realize, who we are. Well, we don't have to know right away, you know what I mean? But, like, I think it's important, at least in reading, when we read, like, we know who the character is, but we don't always know who they were. But we know who they are as they as they appear to be in the role they're meant to play at the time. And I think that's very important too. So I, for one, do think it was a well done. It was well done in that, and we delve into that. The quest definitely helps, and so does like what happens after, because a lot of the book after the quest, especially, deals with a threat that in the beginning of the book in a way, but it deals with a threat that isn't really a threat, and then when the real threat comes, she has to face it, but it does deal with a threat that is not a threat, which I think is interesting. We also get one of the things that it talks about, or that the book touches on, that I also liked, was the fact that historically women have been written by men. So, or like history has been written by men a lot. For example, all the myths of like Helen of Troy have been written by men. So we don't know if Helen of Troy exists, but basically, or existed, but basically Helen of Troy is mainly written about by men, and how she, because of her beauty, sent these two countries to war, right? So we don't know if she ever existed, or if she's probably more myth than anything else, but we don't know anything about that. But basically, a lot of the women have been written by men, and a lot of the things that come up have been written, like if they're deceptive or not, has been written by them and based on their definition. And we get this exploration in the form of Morgan Le Fay. And I love her appearance in this book, and the way that she does show up, and the way that she basically tells her story. Because one of the things that we also get is, the telling of stories and how they showed up, including with Lancelot. We find out Lancelot's backstory, and I think Lancelot's backstory is amazing. And I love, again, their friendship, hers and Guinevere's, beautiful. I am going to ship them. I ship them. I outright ship them. They are an OTP. I love them so much. But basically, yeah, when when Morgan Le Fay appears, it's a very interesting thing, because we don't know who she is at first, but then we find out exactly who she is later on. And her story is very interesting according to this universe. And honestly, I love it, because we don't because I do think we know that a lot of these women in general have been written by men, and it may not always be outright true what they say, and it just happens to be. And a lot of the time in fiction, in classic fiction, like if we look at Arthurian legends, preferably, we're going to take the Arthurian legends, we're going to look at Le Morte d'Arthur, and the poem, I'm going to say Arthurian writing in general, but like, and the poem, what's the name of this poem? Oh, The Lady of Shalott by Tennyson. I forgot his first name. Okay, in Le Morte d'Arthur, a lot of these women are written either as seductresses, manipulators, liars, and basically, or submissive. Like, those are like the main four criteria. Guinevere is basically a traitor. A traitor is an unfaithful person, and she's in other legends, in older legends, she herself is also a seductress. Sometimes she's forced into things, but other times she's mainly evil. Like, there's one where she is a wicked queen ruling beside Mordred. There's one where Mordred seduced her, and she ends up marrying him, and she also gives him a child. There's also one where she gives him a child unwillingly and all that stuff. But there are mainly others where she is very much evil and a temptress. Morgana is also mainly evil, though I believe in Le Morte d'Arthur there's a bit of a change in her. But I can't quite remember, because I do remember the ending of La Morte d'Arthur is that has she accompanies Arthur uh, in the boat to Avalon. So, but now, like, that's how they're written. So I now like that they're being written in a way that gives them back more power, and it gives them they kind of take the power in a way. Although in the Excalibur Curse, it's a little bit interesting how it all turns out. But I appreciate the exploration of the simple fact that women have been written by men in many, many ways throughout history. That may not all be true. So, yeah, I appreciate that. This book definitely had an interesting, and I love the storyline between Guinevere and her sister, who was known mainly as Guinevoque, but is now mainly Lily. So it's adorable. Lily is an interesting character. I love her arc, and I love how she comes to play in Guinevere's life. I think she is a lovely character, and I think that she deserves happiness. I love her so much. The 5 stars, that's my review. I think as a sequel, it works out great, and I love the ending that will lead inevitably to the third book. So, love it. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow for my review on the Excalibur Curse. So, comment down below and let me know your thoughts on this book. And until tomorrow, consume stories.